Welcome,
Nice to see
Rabbi.
you.
Welcome. Pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
All right. We were just, you can put the headphones on, and I know you're good at this. You've done this a million times. We were just saying that the reason why you're here, and if any of this is wrong, feel free to correct us, is that before Shimon Peres died, he said to you that when it's time to produce my documentary, I want you to do it. So I guess the time is here, huh? The Shimon Peres documentary.
That's correct. It was quite amazing. He was doing an interview on another subject with us. And after the interview, we packed up all the equipment downstairs, and we're ready to take off on the truck. And his chief of staff called us back, says the president would like to see you. And we came back up, and he said, there's the most important thing, and I forgot completely about it. I was, doing the interview. I would like you to do our life story. And we were completely shocked that that it happened the way it happened. So he said, of course, Mr. President, we'd be honored to do it, but there's only one request. You've got to stay put in one place for at least 3 weeks so that we can get all the interviews done, because he goes all over the world. He was in China, in India, never resting. And and the film was finished, and we'll premiere this evening in New York. Then it will go to the festival route. After that, to a theatrical release.
Wow.
And after the theatrical release, to streaming media.
Well, he was considered, Shimon Peres, of course, two-time prime minister of Israel. He is considered the last link when he was alive to the founding fathers of the state of Israel. He was a protege of David Ben-Gurion, the first, I believe, prime minister of Israel, right?
Absolutely. And not only, he was a protege, and most people do not know this about Shimon Peres. Shimon Peres came up with the idea. Everyone opposed him when he said it, that the future is going to be about nuclear energy. And if Israel doesn't enter that field, we will be lost. Everyone opposed him because they knew it would be a big budget item and would be taken away from their budgets. The people who opposed him were Levi Eshkol, Golda Meir, Abba Eban, all the stalwarts.
Yeah, the labor
proved
type
to be, imagine today if Israel, surrounded by Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, and other good, so-called good friends, what would happen to Israel if they didn't know that Israel has something in Dimona?
No, you're absolutely 1,000% right. I mean, he's responsible for the preemptive, the strength of Israel right now. I mean, that's the only reason that they don't get invaded or attacked or whatever, is because of their overwhelming strength, including nuclear weapons. And so, and the United States, of course, has their back. But he had the foresight to have this policy in place. And he succeeded Yitzhak Rabin, who he was a fierce opponent of. They didn't get along at all, right?
That's correct. They respected each other. They didn't get along. And in the end, when just before Rabin was murdered at that rally in Tel Aviv, it's on video. Everyone can see it. They hugged each other. And that was the moment that they came together. On that particular moment,
and he died right after.
10 minutes later, Rabin was gone.
Rabbi Marvin, Hier, of course, he founded the Simon Wiesenthal Center, which is not a small deal. And that's where they're going to show this documentary, well-deserved, Shimon Peres, later on tonight. So I know you just spoke to President Trump not that long ago, right? How long ago was that?
When he was in Los Angeles at the home of Lee Sampson, a trustee of the Wiesenthal Center.
Right.
I was at that event.
Okay, see,
and the president, yes.
Right. And he's a friend of the Jews, obviously. Everything he does is good for the state of Israel. He gets along well with Bibi. You see what's going on, not just in the Middle East. What's scary is what's going on in this country. Some politicians that are just outwardly bashing Jews all the time. I took part in a rally at the New York Times building just a couple of weeks ago about that very anti-Semitic cartoon with Donald Trump and Bibi Netanyahu. You see what's going on. Would you go as far as saying this is the worst you've seen in terms of anti-Semitism since maybe World War II?
No question about it. Everywhere in the world. First of all, Europe. 55,000 French Jews left. In England, a survey in England shows that 33% of British Jews say they fear for the future of the Jewish community of England.
Wow.
And in the United States, everywhere, in broad day, in brazen attacks, in broad daylights, as if they're afraid of nothing. And what we have to remember is that, the Wiesenthal Center owns the Hitler letter. And what most people don't know, and we know because we own that letter, that was his first statement to the world. Nobody ever heard of Adolf Hitler when he wrote that letter. In the letter, he says two things. The Jews use their money to influence nations and politicians. Where have we heard that recently? From the United States Congress, Congresswoman Omar, who said it's about the Benjamins, baby. And that's what Hitler said when he made his entree onto the world. Nobody paid attention to him because he was a nobody. And people said, this is nothing. And 22 years later, after he wrote that letter, he implemented everything he said in the letter, which was, he says, my final objective is the total removal of the Jews altogether.
Yep.
And in 22 years later, that's what he did.
Wiped out about 70% of the Jews.
So when we hear in the House of Lincoln, in the House of George Washington, Congresswoman Omar using the same language that Hitler used exactly 100 years ago, we should rise in indignation of such horrific remarks.
Absolutely, Rabbi Meyer. So let me let me ask you this question. Who do you reserve some of your anger towards more? The people who perpetrate these comments or the people who will abide and indulge these and are afraid to condemn these people? And some are Jewish congressmen themselves. I mean, Pelosi, again, watered down that resolution. And you have Nadler and Schiff and all these guys. Nobody says boo. Schumer says nothing.
Well, first of all, Simon Wiesenthal, our namesake, Simon Wiesenthal used to say that silence is the greatest enemy of the Jewish people.
Bingo.
In other words, he said, it's when you see these horrific acts, when you see that anti-Semitism is prevalent, anti-Semitism and hatred should take center stage, not politics.
Agreed, 1,000%, and yet inexplicably they remain silent. Now, who are they afraid of? I mean, some of these guys are hanging out with Louis Farrakhan. Nobody called him out on it for years. They just let it go.
Well, Louis Farrakhan, he got away with it, nobody else. It's unbelievable when you think about it that when Aretha Franklin at the funeral.
Yeah.
Now, certainly somebody had to know the seating arrangements beforehand.
Bill Clinton knew it.
This wasn't something that came down from heaven in the last minute.
Right.
So the question is, if they knew, if President Clinton knew where he's going to be seated, his aides, or let's say he didn't know, but his aides knew, they should have said, we do not want a president of the United States seated near the biggest bigot in the United States, an anti-Semite, Louis Farrakhan. Nothing was said, and all the photos of everything, all the media photographing and saying what to the world? See how legitimate Farrakhan is?
Normalizing it.
Well, let's wrap it up with this. And again, tonight at the Simon Wiesenthal Center, the documentary for Shimon Peres, the great Rabbi Marvin Hier here in the Bernie and Sid show. We talked about some of the politicians, obviously, that spend their days just crushing the Jewish people. We did see not that long ago Iran sending airstrikes into Israel, hundreds and hundreds of them. So where we are today in this world, and look, we've got the United States, Israel's got the United States and Donald Trump behind them. We know that. But the rest of the world, not so much. How do you feel in your heart of hearts about the future of Israel?
I feel that the future of Israel that the state of Israel will always be here, that the greatest knock to anti-Semites around the world is they're going to have to live with a great state of Israel that even today is ranked in terms of technology, in terms of every whatever you want to analyze the state of Israel, they rank in the top 10.
Everything.
And who would believe that the Jewish people, 1/3 of the Jewish people wiped out in the Holocaust, and today you have the state of Israel, which is ranked amongst the 5th and 6th greatest nation in the world. That is the greatest put down to anti-Semites, and that I bet you they can't sleep at night, and may they continue not to sleep at night.
The existence of Israel
Great. Well
continues.
said.
That's right. Excellent job.
Very well
Well, congratulations on this tonight, and good luck. And I'm sure it's going to be. Have you seen a lot of it already? You know basically what's in it.
You
made it right. So it's fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you
Nice
very
to
much.
meet you.
Thank you,
Okay.
Rabbi.
Rabbi Hier.
Sei gesund.
Sei gesund to you.